The first thing Adam Greaves noticed when he stepped off the shuttle and onto the polished obsidian platform was that it was too clean, unnaturally clean. Not a scuff, not a fingerprint, not even a speck of dust. The air smelled like sterilized plastic and ozone, and the sky above was a soft lavender, filtered through a dome of translucent shielding. The planet, Virelia 7, was home to the Tharx Coalition, an interstellar alliance of ultra-advanced species who had recently invited Earth to a diplomatic and technological exchange. Adam adjusted the duffel bag slung over his shoulder, the duct tape on its fraying strap holding strong despite the bag being nearly 20 years old. He wore a standard-issue unasked jumpsuit, its collar slightly rumpled, and a patch on his chest bearing his name stitched slightly crooked. As he stepped forward, a silver orb the size of a basketball hovered at eye level and projected a holographic image of a tall, willowy Tharx official. "Welcome, Adam Greaves of Earth," the projection said in a voice that had a faint metallic undertone. "Please follow the light path to reception node 7. Your liaison, Supervisor Halleck, awaits." Sure," Adam said. He glanced down to see a glowing blue trail illuminating beneath his boots. Shrugging, he followed it. Reception node 7 looked like someone had tried to build an Apple store in zero gravity. Everything shimmered with a subtle glow, and the walls shifted hues depending on where he looked. Transparent chairs floated inches above the floor, and a central column pulsed with data streams. Halleck stood near a console, its elongated arms moving in smooth, efficient arcs. The alien was about 8 feet tall, with a slender frame and skin that looked like brushed chrome. A thin cable ran from the back of its head to the console. "You are late by 1.3 minutes, Halleck said without turning. "Yeah, sorry. I stopped to tie my boot," Adam replied, patting the roll of duct tape clipped to his belt. Halleck finally turned and tilted its head. "Your boots are secured with adhesive tape." "Well, technically it's duct tape, but it works. The laces broke in orbit and I didn't want to deal with zero-G loops." Halleck blinked, or at least paused in some equivalent way. "Primitive, inefficient, yet functional," Adam grinned. "That's pretty much humanity in a nutshell." Over the next 3 days, Adam attended symposiums, sat through endless procedural demos, and toured technology centers that made NASA best labs look like high school science fairs. The Tharx prided themselves on seamless integration and self-healing materials. Every malfunction was solved by sleek, autonomous drones or nanobots that whirred invisibly through the air. Adam wasn't unimpressed, he just didn't trust anything he couldn't see working. His opportunity to demonstrate that skepticism came sooner than expected. On the 4th day, during a guided tour of the planetary engine core, an enormous subterranean system that regulated tectonic stability and atmospheric balance, a vibration trembled through the floor. Halleck halted mid-sentence and placed a hand to the wall. Structural resonance anomaly detected. Minor deviation from expected vibration thresholds. A blinking alert flared above the control panel. The guide, a smaller Tharx named Vexil, immediately tapped into the console. "Containment seal on thermal vent 12 has begun to deteriorate. Nanite swarm dispatched," Vexil said. "How long until it's fixed?" Adam asked. "Approximately 27 seconds. Swarm ETA, 16 seconds. Then the lights flickered, Vexil's hand froze. "Nanite guidance system is offline. Swarm lost containment routing." Halleck didn't move, but the tension in the air thickened. "Manual override is not possible. All functions are automated." Adam stepped toward the display. "You don't have a backup control. Manual redundancies are deemed obsolete," Halleck said. "Our systems do not fail." The floor rumbled harder now, and a thin wisp of steam hissed from a circular panel near the far wall. Adam jogged toward it, ignoring Halleck's protest. "That panel's gonna blow," he said, crouching to inspect it. The screws were fused into the casing, and the integrity scanner on the wall was flashing red. A hairline crack ran along the seam, and heat was radiating through. Adam pulled a multi-tool from his belt, but the heat warped the metal instantly. "Your tools are inadequate," Halleck said. "You will be injured." "Then stop me," Adam muttered, unhooking his duct tape and tearing off a length with his teeth. He pressed it over the crack, then layered 3 more strips in a crosshatch. Vexel watched in stunned silence. "This is adhesive tape." "Yup." "You believe this will solve a high-pressure containment breach." "Not solve. Buy us time." The tape darkened but held. The steam stopped. Adam exhaled, then turned to them. "You got something better, use it. But right now this patch is holding." Halleck blinked again. Manual intervention succeeded. Probability of structural collapse reduced by 72%. "You're welcome," Adam muttered, wiping sweat from his forehead. Later, in the medbay, Adam sat on a cold metal bench while a Tharx technician scanned his burned fingertips. "You exposed yourself to direct thermal leakage," the technician said. "Yeah, I noticed. You would have expired without intervention had the breach expanded. That's why I taped it." The technician stared for a long moment. "You are either reckless or exceptionally adaptive." Adam shrugged with his unbandaged hand. "Little of both, I guess." 2 days later, the Tharx invited Adam to present a seminar, partly as a gesture of diplomatic respect, partly, he suspected, out of sheer curiosity. The presentation room was filled with various species, some with translucent skin, others with rotating eyes, all watching as Adam stood behind a sleek podium. He held up a roll of silver duct tape. "This," he said, "is the most versatile tool humans have ever invented. We've used it to patch plane wings, fix space stations, seal wounds, and hold shoes together." He paced slowly, placing the roll on the table. "You rely on systems that assume perfection, but when things go sideways, you need something simple. Something that doesn't rely on a power source or a clean room." A few murmurs rippled through the room. Halleck, standing off to the side, spoke. "Are you advocating for regression, for abandoning advanced systems?" "No," Adam said. "I'm saying sometimes you just need something that works. Not elegantly, not beautifully, just works." A week later, he was invited to observe a deep space satellite recalibration. As the shuttle docked with the Tharx array station, a minor collision during docking caused one of the exterior antenna panels to detach. The drones deployed to retrieve it failed, too delicate, too calibrated for precision. Adam floated out in a pressure suit, one hand gripping a tether, the other holding a strip of duct tape inside a thermal wrapper. He manually reattached the panel, secured it with the tape, and sealed the connection. The system rebooted, full signal restored. Back inside, Halleck greeted him near the airlock. "Your methods are inefficient," Halleck said. "Yup," Adam replied, unfastening his helmet, "but they work." Halleck paused, then turned and walked away. Later that night in his quarters, Adam received a small package. Inside was a roll of Tharx-engineered polymer film, ultra-thin, self-bonding, thermally adaptive. Attached was a note written in human English, "Tharx adhesive composite." Inspired by Earth design. Working title, Duct Tape Mark Roman II. Adam chuckled. "Not bad," he said to himself. Then he reached into his bag, pulled out the old, fraying roll of silver tape and tucked it beside the new one. "You've earned a friend." And for the first time since arriving, he felt like he belonged. When the alarm blared through the lower decks of the Tharx orbital outpost, it didn't sound like a siren. It was a single low-frequency tone that vibrated through the walls and deep into Adam's molars. He was in the middle of adjusting the braided shoulder strap on the translator rig. They'd given him an upgrade after he'd accidentally reset a console trying to find the bathroom when the vibration hit. "Containment irregularity in supply junction C17, said a calm, synthesized voice overhead. "Personnel in proximity, please remain stationary." Adam looked up. "That's not how we do emergencies," he muttered, already jogging toward the access corridor. A Tharx maintenance drone zipped by, trailing a faint shimmer of diagnostic light. It didn't stop. Around the corner, 2 technicians stood frozen, their limbs slightly lifted in the posture he'd learned men observe but do not interfere. One of them, a grass-toned biped with jointless arms, turned to him with a single blinking eye. "You were instructed to remain stationary," it said. "I'm not great at waiting," Adam replied, ducking under a low beam and skidding to a stop at the junction. A knee-high panel had buckled outward, and a thin trail of greenish fluid was seeping onto the floor. The smell hit him first acrid, almost metallic, with a sharpness that reminded him vaguely of burnt antifreeze. "What's in there?" he asked. The technician blinked. "Polythermal coolant for the auto-stabilizers, highly corrosive to biological tissue. Self-neutralizing under sealed conditions." Adam crouched. "And you just wait here until what? A nanobot decides to show up." "Containment procedures are underway. Estimated time to deploy a neutralizing drone, 19 minutes. He stared at the fluid creeping toward an open-floor vent. "And how long until that stuff eats through your airflow grid?" The other technician hesitated. "Uncertain." Adam unzipped the side of his jumpsuit and pulled out a wrapped bundle, unfolding a thick plastic sheet, the kind they used to cover shuttle cargo during atmospheric departure. He tore off a strip of adhesive lining and slapped it down over the leak. It didn't stick well. Condensation had already beaded along the panel, but it slowed the flow. He glanced around. "You got any kind of clamp or pressure seal? We do not employ mechanical fasteners. All systems are designed to self-align. Figures." He reached into his side pouch and pulled out a roll of bright orange vinyl tape. Not duct tape this time, this one was high-temp rated, waterproof, and slightly stretchy. He wrapped it tight around the worst part of the breach, layering it fast. The green fluid slowed to a drip. "Okay, that's not a fix," he said, standing up and wiping his hands on his thigh. "But it'll hold until your miracle drone shows up." The taller technician tilted its head. "You applied a polymer binding agent without sterilization, that is. Unconventional." "Yeah, and so is letting acid leak into your air system while you wait for a robot to finish its coffee break." Neither technician responded. "Right," Adam muttered. "I'll be in the shower." 2 hours later, he sat shirtless in the medical wing while a Tharx clinician scanned his forearms with a glowing prism. His skin was dotted with faint red patches, and the technician's expressionless face made him uneasy. "Is it bad?" Adam asked. "There is superficial dermal irritation consistent with limited coolant exposure. Your epidermis did not dissolve. This is considered a favorable outcome. Great bedside manner you got there." The clinician handed him a tube of translucent gel. "Apply this every 6 hours. Do not ingest." "I wasn't planning to. You are human." It seemed prudent to specify. He raised an eyebrow. "You think we just eat random things? You repaired a high-pressure leak with cargo wrapping and industrial tape. Your approach to risk is idiosyncratic." Adam pulled his shirt back on. "Where I come from, if it's leaking and no one else is fixing it, you do what you can with what you've got." The clinician blinked its inner eyelid. "A philosophy incompatible with Tharx protocol." "Yeah, that's becoming obvious." By the following day, Adam had been reassigned to assist at the structural integration lab, a vaguely defined facility where materials were tested under artificial stress environments. The Tharx, for all their capital P precision, had started asking questions about how human spacewalkers patched microfractures without waiting for entire system diagnostics to complete. They wanted a demonstration. He arrived at the lab to find Supervisor Halleck waiting, alongside 3 observers from different coalition species. One looked like a spiraled coil of translucent fibers pulsing with light. Another was suspended in a containment bubble, its body gaseous and flickering with static. The third had no visible face, just a smooth, pale surface that occasionally rippled like disturbed milk. Halleck gestured toward a test chamber. "You have been given access to a synthetic hull segment with a deliberate fault introduced. Your task: repair the breach using materials of your choosing. You may not request automated assistance." "Sounds like a Tuesday," Adam said, stepping inside. The breach was small, a jagged slit along a composite panel, barely 2 inches long. Simulated vacuum pressure would be applied from behind, mimicking the conditions of a slow depressurization event. He pulled out his kit. No fancy equipment, just a few rolls of tape, each with different ratings, some flexible patches, and a heat pack. "You are not using resin or polymer injection?" asked the observer in the bubble. "Nope." "Too slow to set." "You are not sealing from the interior?" "Not if the interior's decompressed. I'm not." He cleaned the area with a basic solvent wipe borrowed from the galley because Tharx didn't stock field kits. He pressed a thermal patch over the breach, then used the heat pack to activate the bonding layer. Over that, he crisscrossed a high stretch tape to resist structural flex. The whole thing took less than 4 minutes. Test it, he said. The pressure system activated. Nothing hissed. No sensors tripped. Halleck studied the readings. Integrity stable, pressure loss negligible. The pale observer leaned forward. This method is replicable easily, Adam said. You can train someone in a day, no drones, no calibration. Works on the outside of a hull too if you've got a suit and a grip. There was a pause. Halleck looked at the other observers, then back at Adam. Your process lacks elegance. Yeah, Adam said, folding his arms. But if it's your last 30 seconds of oxygen, elegance doesn't fix much. 3 days later, the coalition scheduled a review session to evaluate potential integration of low-tech redundancy protocols. The phrase alone made Adam chuckle. The meeting room was unusually crowded. There were more than a dozen representatives, each seated in their own preferred environment, some in fluid tanks, some in upright harnesses, one in a vertical cylinder filled with humming vapor. Adam stood in front of a projection screen, behind a table laid out with what looked like a hardware store clearance rack. Rolls of tape, zip ties, clamps, sealant patches, even an old hand crank drill. You're proposing we incorporate these. Artifacts, said a Tharx delegate with a tone he couldn't quite pin down. Disgust, maybe, or just deep confusion. These tools are designed to work without external systems, Adam said. If your grid goes down, if your bots get scrambled, or if your fancy guidance AI decides to update itself mid-emergency, this stuff still works. The gaseous envoy hovered closer. You imply our systems are vulnerable. I'm saying they're not invincible. And when they fail, you better have options that don't require a service manual the size of a shuttle wing. A silence followed. Then Halleck stepped forward. During the coolant incident, Adam Greaves intervened using unorthodox methods. The breach did not escalate. The evidence supports exploration of contingency protocols. You're backing this? Asked another delegate. Halleck's gaze didn't waver. I am acknowledging results. Later that evening, Adam walked the perimeter ring alone, staring out through the viewport at a distant gas giant. The stars moved slowly across the sky, and for the first time since arriving, no one was monitoring him. He reached into his belt pouch and pulled out a new roll Tharx adhesive composite Mark Roman II. Sleek, silver-black, with a faint shimmer in the light. He turned it over in his hands, then tore off a strip. It made the exact same sound as duct tape. He smiled. Then, from behind, a voice. We have begun retrofitting emergency packs with your tools. He turned to see Halleck standing near the archway. Guess you're taking notes now. We are adapting. Adam nodded. Took you long enough. Halleck tilted its head. You are difficult to anticipate. That's the idea, Adam said. Keeps things interesting. The Tharx did not believe in stairs. This, Adam Greaves discovered with growing irritation, was a design choice not born of aesthetic minimalism, but of evolutionary arrogance. If you had 6 limbs, anti-grav nodes built into your spinal column, and a cultural aversion to irregular motion, stairs were unnecessary. But for someone with knees that sometimes clicked when the weather changed, scaling a 30-foot vertical maintenance shaft by ladder because someone disabled the lift system for recalibration felt like a personal insult. He reached the top with a grunt, pulling himself onto the graded platform with both palms scraped raw from the metal rungs. The interior of the auxiliary thermal exchange node, a place the Tharx referred to simply as aux temp, was quiet, except for the fans cycling warm air in a constant low hum. Pale blue backlighting gave the walls a faint glow, casting long shadows across the conduits that snaked along the ceiling. The place smelled faintly of mineral oil and ionized copper. Adam sat down heavily on an unoccupied crate, catching his breath. His wristwatch showed local time as late cycle equivalent to early evening back home. He pulled off a glove and flexed his fingers, inspecting the blister forming near the base of his thumb. Your circulatory pressure is elevated, came a voice from above. He looked up to see a Tharx technician suspended upside down from the ceiling mount, its limbs wrapped easily around a curved support rail. The technician's name was Drell, and unlike Halleck, Drell had a tendency to speak in long, wandering sentences that often veered into unhelpful tangents. You traverse the vertical shaft manually, Drell continued, rotating slowly until it faced him right side up. That is not recommended for your species. Adam blew on his hand and reached into his tool pouch. Neither is sitting around while your coolant bypass system runs hot because someone forgot to realign the flow diverters. Where's the junction panel? Drell pointed to a recessed wall segment near the floor. It is magnetically sealed to prevent unauthorized access. Great. Adam knelt, ran a gloved hand along the seam until he found the release latch and yanked. Nothing happened. That panel responds only to Tharx biometric markers, Drell added after a pause. Then why'd you let me climb up here? I assumed you had override access. You assumed wrong. Adam stood, stretched his back, and sighed. Do you have a marker that'll open it? Drell dropped lightly to the floor. My authorization rating is insufficient. I am here for observational redundancy, meaning you're here to watch, correct? Adam stared at the panel. Right, of course. He walked a short circle, then stopped, tapping his fingers on his thigh. Okay. So the coolant's pooling in the bypass line, and your system won't vent unless the diverters cycle, which means pressure will build until the system throws a fault or something melts. Drell tilted its head. That is a reasonable outcome. Adam dropped to one knee in front of the panel again. Then let's not wait for that. He pulled a thin pry tool from his kit and wedged it gently into the seam. The panel groaned but didn't budge. He adjusted the angle, leaned into it, and the corner popped with a metallic snap. You have damaged the seal, Drell said. Just the corner. The seal is designed for single-use precision. It cannot be reseated. Then it's a good thing I brought tape. Drell made a sound that was, Adam suspected, the Tharx version of a scoff. Inside the panel, the diverter array was visible, a series of ceramic valves, one of which had shifted out of alignment. The manual override lever, a small hexagonal rod, was buried behind a translucent safety shield. This is your emergency interface, Adam asked. It is not intended for manual activation. Yeah, I got that from the 30 steps you've designed to stop anyone from touching it. He reached in with a pair of insulated pliers, maneuvered them around the shield, and nudged the lever. It didn't budge. Do not exert force, Drell said, stepping closer. The ceramic may fracture under pressure. If I don't, the valve won't reset. That is not a risk-calculated strategy. I'm not calculating, I'm improvising. Adam braced the pliers against the nearest support and applied steady pressure. The lever resisted, then shifted with a dull click. A low hiss filled the chamber as the coolant rerouted through the system. The hum of the fans deepened, and the temperature dropped slightly. Drell blinked. Flow normalization has resumed. Yep. Adam closed the panel, then peeled a strip of heavy-duty adhesive from his pouch and sealed the broken corner. Consider it patched. You have compromised the seal integrity. I've restored function by circumventing protocol, by preventing a meltdown. Adam stood, wiping his hands on his jumpsuit. You're welcome. Later that night, he sat in the medical wing again. Not because he was injured, but because his left hand had started twitching. The med scanner buzzed quietly beside him, and a diagnostic screen showed elevated nerve activity in his forearm. A Tharx medic hovered nearby, adjusting the settings. This one was unfamiliar, taller than the others, with a set of thin antennae that vibrated as it worked. It didn't speak for several minutes, just observed. Any permanent damage? Adam asked finally. Your muscle fibers show signs of acute strain, the medic said. Your grip exceeded standard tolerance repeatedly. Yeah, I was forcing a jammed lever with pliers not exactly ergonomic. You applied torque beyond design specifications. Not the first time. Your species exhibits a disregard for structural thresholds. We call it persistence, Adam said. Or stubbornness, depends on who you ask. The medic applied a cooling gel to his forearm, then wrapped it in a soft band. Limit repetitive motion for 2 cycles. Apply moderate pressure only. I'll do my best. You will not. Nope. The medic blinked, then tapped its console. Your recovery probability is within acceptable range. Glad to hear it. The next morning, Halleck requested a meeting. Not in the usual conference room, but in a narrow observation deck overlooking the docking array. The floor was transparent, giving an uncomfortably clear view of the empty space beneath. "I reviewed your actions at AUX Temp," Halleck said without preamble. "Let me guess, you're going to tell me I breached protocol." "You did." And Halleck's eyes narrowed slightly. "You also prevented a systems cascade. However, your actions required bypassing 10 security measures and damaging a sealed panel. I'll replace it. That is not standard procedure. You want results or paperwork?" Halleck turned toward the viewport. "Your methods introduce variables. That's what humans do. We find the cracks and figure out how to hold them together, sometimes with glue, sometimes with grit. You are unpredictable, and that's saved your systems 3 times now." There was a long pause, then Halleck looked back. "The Coalition has approved a trial program. Redundant manual protocols. Your methods will be documented as part of a contingency training initiative." Adam blinked. "Wait, you're making a human-style emergency handbook." "Not precisely. A hybrid model." "You will assist in its creation," he laughed. "You're serious?" Halleck nodded once. "What are we calling it? Adaptive non-standard field responses. That's terrible. It is descriptive." "How about Plan B?" Halleck paused. "Acceptable." Adam leaned against the railing, watching a shuttle detach from the array and drift into open space. For a moment, neither of them said anything, then Halleck spoke again. "You are not like other species." "Good," Adam said. "That's why you brought me." And for once, Halleck didn't argue.